Back here on the Kristian Garic Show. It's Tuesday in the 12 o'clock hour. Chase Spears, retired Army Major, contributor here to the show. Also, check him out, AmericanMind.org. He joins me each and every Tuesday. Chase, good afternoon. How are you?
Hey, good afternoon, Kristian. I'm well. How are things down there in New Orleans today?
Well, we got a mayor that's getting ready to get indicted, I think. So there's that. Not to mention all the national crazy stuff. It is a city that's getting ready to host the Super Bowl, so that's, I guess, a positive. But I still don't go to New Orleans unless I'm carrying a gun. Anyway, wow. I mean, did you hear that that sound clip I just played of Chucky Schumer announcing their support for Kamala Harris, and no applause?
Yeah, I sure did. I think it's one more indicator of things that we've talked about before, and what the polling has consistently showed, and what people have known for quite some time is that she is an unpopular candidate. She was long unpopular among the Democrats. She was among the first, if not the first, to drop out of the primary 4 years ago. Her party doesn't like her. When I bring her name up to friends of mine who are very solidly in the Democratic camp, they are not favorable. They do not like to hear her name. It's very interesting to me, not only that Biden has dropped out like this, but that he's thrown his support to Kamala. I really thought that if he chose to drop out, that they would have someone else that they would throw their support behind. But I suppose in this case, the money talks, and with her being on the ticket, that frees up quite the war chest to be able to continue spending. So I think they're going to have a hard time getting that applause in many, many places.
Just reminding my audience, this is the kind of people Kamala is, and more importantly, this is what this was her narrative for 3 years. Listen.
I'm ready if necessary, but it's not going to be necessary. We have a very bold and vibrant president in Joe Biden. And in Joe Biden, we have one of the boldest and strongest American presidents we have had.
Are you prepared to be commander-in-chief?
Yes, I am, if necessary. But Joe Biden is going to be fine. And we're not going to engage in that hypothetical because Joe Biden is very much alive and running for re-election. Not only is he absolutely authoritative in rooms around the globe, but in the Oval Office, meeting with members of Congress, meeting with leaders in industry. He is extraordinarily smart. He has the ability to see around the corner in terms of what might be the challenges we face as a nation or globally.
Do you think in your role that you're in a position to do that?
Of course, if necessary, but there's no need for that.
Oh, there is a need now. 3 years, Chase. 3.5 years. She's a part of the cover-up.
She absolutely is, and she will have to own that. Look, the bottom line is during all those statements, I have to give her a little bit of credit. Hard as that is for me to do, she's being the loyalist. That's what is expected to do. Pence, when he was Trump's VP, he would make similar comments in public, very effusively praising of the boss. That's just kind of how politics work. Now, I can't get into her mind, and none of us can, to figure out did she actually believe what she was saying, but she was saying what she knew she was expected to say, and she knew all along she had close proximity to the president. She knew of his cognitive decline. She knew that there was a cover-up. She was part of the cover-up, and that's something that she's going to have to answer for. I don't think she's going to get away from that easily. And I'm sure you've noticed, Kristian, on Sunday how rapidly the talking points turned from the inner Democratic circles of weeks of the shark circling and these very closer to the surface attacks on Biden and his ability to carry out the duties of the presidency and to run for re-election. And then when that letter came out on X, of all places, on Sunday, announcing that he was not going to run, suddenly just the switch flipped and the talking points went out. Oh, what a statesman, what a hero. He's doing what is right for the nation. So clearly this has been planned for a long time. We will remember where we were last Sunday when we received that news. I mean, that's a historic thing. Our kids will remember, and this is going to be very fascinating to watch from a historical perspective in the years to come. I think we're watching probably the most successful coup against a sitting president of our lifetimes, and potentially in the history of the nation.
And they want to lecture us about democracy, and they want to cry about J6. You just committed an insurrection within your own party. I don't want to hear it. I want to pick your brain on this. Hakeem Jeffries is constantly, and the left are constantly pushing this Project 2025 project, and Trump's, this is what he's going to do. Well, I think it's actually them prepping the American people as to what they want to do if they win this election. They want more power in the executive branch.
Yeah, the thing about Project 2025 is they are lying about it, and they know they're lying about it. Bottom line is, every time a president goes into office, there is an array of think tanks that is kind of behind that president's policy, and is helping to steer legislation, that is helping to steer policy. Because when you come in as a single president and you have a handful of advisors, the mechanisms of the federal branch they're just so big, and there's no way a single person or even a small team can, in a quick, efficient amount of time, wrap their minds and wrap their hands around all of it. So you have conservative-leaning think tanks that work with conservative presidents. You have progressive left-wing think tanks that work with progressive left-wing presidents. This is nothing new. It's how policy gets done. We can argue about whether it's a good or bad thing. That's for another conversation, but that's just the way it is. This is the way the game currently works. Heritage Foundation is a conservative think tank, and they do phenomenal work. And they, to their credit, have been looking forward to 2025 and saying, if we're able to retake the White House, how do we help the next Republican president to be able to successfully, efficiently take on the deep state? Now, the left wing will retort, there is no deep state. How dare you? You're just making that up. But they're really caught kind of in a parallax on that, Kristian, because they're saying on one hand, there is no deep state. It's you're making this up. Much ado about nothing. But then just this week, they're also celebrating the fact that they were able to essentially deep state the president of the United States out of running for re-election. A parallax is when you have a situation happening and you say, it's not happening, and it's so good that it is. So they're caught in the middle of that. Project 2025 is simply the Heritage Foundation doing what any other think tank does in support of a potential future administration, of trying to help lay the groundwork to support that president's policy and to support that administration's staffing. But Heritage has just been a bit louder about it this year than most other think tanks are, and they've been much more bold about it. And the left wing was not concerned about this, remember, until the presidential debate happened. And then they saw that Joe Biden might not be able to pull this off, so they have to have another boogeyman in the closet, and that's what they've tried to do with Project 2025. Full disclosure, I am one of the people that have been reached out to fill out a profile on Project 2025. So I think very well of the program. I've been briefed on it before. But the bottom line is doing what they're doing through Heritage, what the left wing would do if Kamala won. And they're just trying to make a boogeyman out of anything they can right now to try to scare people out of voting for Donald Trump.
Chase, where can my audience find your latest piece? Is it AmericanMind.org, Substack? Tell my audience, please.
My latest work is actually on my Substack. I am at Dr. Chase Spears on Substack. That's my same handle on all my social media platforms. I've got one or two pieces currently in queue at American Mind that I think will be out at least one this week, so I'll definitely share that with you when that hits.
Chase Spears, sit tight, retired Army Major, Dr. Chase Spears. He's also a contributor here to the show, a friend, and also he writes for AmericanMind.org. This is the Kristian Garic Show, making radio great again.
You're locked into the Kristian Garic Show. Pro-American conversation happens here. Speak freely at 504-556-9696. Now, here's Kristian Garic.
Visiting with Chase Spears, retired Army Major, contributor here to the show. Also, AmericanMind.org is where you can find some of his work. Dr. Chase Spears. Chase, well, at least we know President Biden is alive. We just saw him walk on the tarmac. He used the big boy stairs to go aboard Air Force One to return to the White House after a week in isolation where we hadn't heard from him other than through a post on X and a letter saying he's going to bow out of the race and will not, run for re-election. So that's good news, right?
Yeah, it's nice to know that the man, the elected president, is here and with us, and that allays some concerns that we have reasonably had in the last couple of days.
Yeah, it's just infuriating. I found it incredibly alarming, Chase. I don't know if you heard Speaker Mike Johnson, but he had to remind our enemies not to take advantage of us right now. The Speaker of the House had to say that.
Yeah, this is something that I have a deep level of concern about as a retired military officer, Kristian, is we have the president who, for days was unseen, unknown what his conditions were. His whereabouts is all that we knew, and things were very, very weird in terms of him sending that letter via X and that really weird phone call moment yesterday at Kamala's campaign kickoff. People were asking understandable questions about where is the man who has the nuclear codes, especially when he's done such an about-face and said, God himself is the only one who will get me out of the race. And it seems like really all it took was Nancy Pelosi. No word on whether she brought the Archbishop along for that or not. But he says he wants to continue to remain in power. And think about that, Kristian. His term does not end for over 6 months. We're talking about 1/8, a full 1/8 of a presidential term, that he wants to be a lame duck, acknowledge out loud that he can't run, that he doesn't have the ability, the stamina, the cognitive clarity and ability to run a campaign or to show up at least at campaign events. So if you don't have that, how then can you execute the duties of the presidency? I'm not an alarmist. I'm not one of the kind of national security class folks who pounds down the door every day saying that, tomorrow could be Armageddon. A lot of that is done just to try to justify budgets. But nevertheless, when you have a global leader who is clearly as incapable of the office say, well, I want to hold it and just kind of hang out in silence for the next 6 months, it is an opportune time for adversaries to take advantage. And as I'm writing in another piece right now, if he were the statesman that he is claiming to be, if he is the statesman that his party has now decided they're going to say he is in their talking points, he would know it's time to relinquish command of the military. As long as he wants to remain in the White House as a frail, lame duck, that does increase the level of risk, and that should concern every single American.
Chase, you sent me over this story. Last week, Fort Liberty-based soldier leaked the photo of an anti-terrorism training brief and a slide that labeled the National Right to Life as an extreme group.
Yeah, can you believe that's happening in your Army? Kristian, you were a Marine. What's the purpose of the military?
Fight wars, protect our country.
Wars. Defend the nation, defend the Constitution, protect the public from those who want to threaten it. And under this current administration, the Biden administration, and really started by the Obama administration, the military has put as much effort, if not more, into bringing in these divisive Marxist ideologies into the force. Kristian, during my last few years in uniform, I had more opportunities to attend diversity training sessions that were designed to make me suddenly love the idea of transgenderism. I had more opportunity to attend trainings on those than I did to go qualify on a weapon. I'm not making that up, and my story is by no means unique. And so, yeah, we had this training slide that was leaked out of Fort Liberty, formerly known as Fort Bragg, North Carolina, literally showing National Right to Life and other pro-life organizations as extremists. And this was in an extremist training. Now, Army officials there on the base quickly backpedaled once this got out in the press and said, oh, this is not an official slide. We had some rogue guy throw in something that he was not authorized. He was doing his personal opinion, and we have policed that up. The problem is this has happened several times before. I remember just last year, there was a similar incident up at Minot Air Force Base in North Dakota where airmen were told, hey, you better not go to the Turning Point USA event that Charlie Kirk is hosting because that's an extreme organization. And we've seen several other instances of that. But here's the problem. Army officials there on the base said, oops, this was a mistake. We fixed the slide. But then yesterday, in response to a congressional inquiry, the Secretary of the Army acknowledged that that slide had been used for 7 years. So at least for 7 years on that one base, people have been trained that National Right to Life is an extremist organization. Well, if you're training the Army to hate what is good about this country and to hate people who love this country, what is that Army supposed to defend? This goes back to the reason that our founders were wary of the idea of large standing armies among us that get disconnected from the values of the land. And that's what this administration has used to their advantage and to our detriment. And people have got to get involved. Too many people say, I don't live near a base. I don't have family in the military. It doesn't concern me. I promise you, it concerns you. You have to care about this. You have to make your voices heard. Your congressman, you have to take seriously which officers are getting appointed. This isn't all hands on deck. We've got to recover the military, or it's going to become a danger to us rather than a defense mechanism for us.
Chase, we got about 3 minutes, and I'm going to make a small statement. I want you to tell me if you agree or disagree with this. Okay, just like Kimberly Cheadle, just like Joe Biden, she was set up by the deep state. And going back to the assassination attempt on Donald Trump, the deep state, if you think about it, they didn't need a perfect plan. They knew the shooter would be killed. He's not going to say a word, can't speak from the grave. They don't care that the Secret Service director is resigning or being investigated. They probably didn't even care if we caught him. They just wanted Trump out of the way at all costs. They wanted him dead. Why? It's always about money, right? It's always about money. There's a lot of money to be had. War profits, big pharma, open borders. And if Trump gets in power, that all goes away. They could easily, if Trump had died, if they had killed him, they could have gotten Biden across the finish line then. You agree or disagree with any of that?
You know, Christian, I'm increasingly open to that. You know, the last time we talked about this last week, I was trying to be a little less bullish on it because I wanted to wait and see what the facts told us. And the more that I learned about this shooting and this event, it's increasingly clear to me whether or not this guy was sent out by the deep state. Clearly, the Secret Service was not doing their due diligence, and I do not think that is a mistake. I do think that, you know, when you look at the fact that the left wing was celebrating the shooting, how many people on the left wing were saying it's too bad the shooter missed? They absolutely do want Donald Trump dead, and I do think that there was a hope that if they could knock him out, that they could get Joe across the finish line because he has the power of incumbency, and they knew that Trump was the biggest threat to them. The primaries made that very clear. The fact that he's still around, well, they had to reevaluate, and that one shot seems to have taken out Biden.
Certainly has. Chase Spears, great stuff as always, man. Thank you.
Take care, bud.
All right, 1 hour down, one more to go. This is the Kristian Garic Show, making radio great again.